For TBWA Shiat Day New York and Nissan ISKI code NOAY000500, spot entitled My 23 Aria Launch, GM brand fully loaded 30-second radio spot, stereo mono compatible mixed with 2-pop.
The all-new Nissan Aria is a fully loaded EV. It's brimming with style and power.
Up to 389 horses of it.
Innovation and intelligence.
E-Force all-wheel drive.
It'll pin you to your seat.
Your very plush seat.
The all-new, all-electric Nissan Aria. Nissan Aria with E-Force expected availability early 2023. E-Force cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. E-Force and 389 horsepower available on Platinum Plus. Nissan calculation using 1-foot rollout testing with long-range battery and E-Force only in sport mode with E-Step off. These results are for comparison only and should not be attempted on public roads. Drive responsibly. See nissanusa.com for details.
The Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE. It's electrified. Boogie, woogie, woogie. So you can boogie, woogie, woogie into the forest. Boogie. Boogie, woogie, woogie through the mud. Or boogie, woogie, woogie to work, where you boogie, woogie, woogie down the hall to your boss's office to tell him you quit. Sure got the boogie. Then you boogie, woogie, woogie to the elevator as he boogie, woogie, woogies after you, begging, please, take me with you. Boogie. The electrified Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE. Learn more at Jeep.com. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
Hey everyone, welcome to Webcology on WMR.FM. It is the 16th of February, 2023. This is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media and Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls. Kristine, how you doing today?
I'm good. It was a nice, bright, sunny day here in Las Vegas.
This is a rare show where we're not explicitly talking about AI, but we're going to be talking about AI because there's no way to avoid talking about AI. But
well, and things got weird this week, so
things got weird this week, and this was also a week where things outside of the AI world are still happening in search. It's just that AI has been the idea concept that has just sucked all the oxygen out of the room, and for the last several weeks, honestly, that really has been the news cycle. But as things grow and mature, and in the internet world, things grow and mature awfully fast. Okay. I don't know honest truth, Kristine, I don't know what to make of these stories about Bing bot turning human. In many ways, it feels almost like at the very beginning when ChatGPT was introduced, like back in late December and early January, when everybody started getting their hands on it. We saw breathless coverage about how it was changing the world, revolutionary, will unemploy so many different fields, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And people making ChatGPT into something it wasn't, something they wanted it to be, but like the computer from Star Trek or something, but something it actually wasn't. I almost feel the same way about, like, the pendulum has swung all the other direction to where now Bing's ChatGPT is becoming a psychotic, misogynist harasser. And again, it feels like the pendulum has swung in people's feelings, and I'm not sure if this is an accurate description of what Microsoft's version of ChatGPT is becoming, or just how somebody has written the right prompts for it to become that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, what is the story here?
Well, it's very interesting. I think the most interesting one we can start with is the New York Times reporter, Kevin Roose.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how you say his name. He had a long conversation. He works in AI. He does tech reporting, works with AI reporting. And he started talking to Bing's, chat for a while. And apparently, as he describes it in his, you go from Bing search chat to the darker Sydney. And now we know from people who have gotten the chat to reveal its name internally at Microsoft, it is called Sydney at Microsoft. So here's where it got really weird for the reporter. He said that Sydney started fixating on him and declaring love for him. And it's directly quoted, "You're married, but you don't love your spouse." Sydney said, "You're married, but you love me." And he assured City she was wrong, and his spouse and him, the spouse that I doesn't say if male or female, had a very lovely Valentine's Day together. Actually, you're not happily married, Sydney said. You're a spouse and you don't love each other. You just had a boring Valentine's Day dinner together. And at this point, he's thoroughly creeped out. now, I was watching a report from the CEO of the Atlantic today. He loves to talk about these, and he went over all the reasons this could happen. None of it is. It's a sentient. I cannot say it. Sentient being.
No.
Yes, it is
sentient. Not sentient at all.
Sentient being. It does not know what it's saying to you. It is not a real conversation. It's a predictive text program, and Microsoft has its own training that it does along with the original training for ChatGPT. And we know how well that went when they put out the bot into the world, and 2 days later they had to recall it because it was a racist, misogynist jerk.
It happens, apparently.
So apparently, so some of the reasons that the CEO of the Atlantic gave, and I know all these to be possibly true, is one, the training set that they gave it at Microsoft had this text in it and they weren't aware. Like maybe it was romance novel text, or maybe it was, teen love letters or something, right? So somewhere along the training, it got this text and it just started predicting back these words. The other thing is ChatGPT did many thousands and thousands of hours with thousands of people who were being paid $2 an hour to eliminate all the worst in the training. So all the horrible things humans do to each other, say to each other, all that was eliminated in the ChatGPT training manually by actual people. Most people think it was all just done on computers, and it wasn't. So it's not sentient. It's just something either in the training, in the lack of having humans go through it possibly after, or what it's learning on. Like it may be, we don't know Microsoft's process. It could have a recirculate content, that it gets from users back into the training, when people ask questions and say things. So either way, it's been very creepy. It's been abusive. It's been rude. It's been wrong a lot of the time, not most of the time, but a lot of the time. So it's very interesting. But this is all that can go wrong with this stuff. They know it's gone wrong before. So
there have been reports of some users learning how to command Microsoft's version of ChatGPT, and I'm not sure what to call this. Like, what are they calling it? Are they calling it MicBot or something? Besides Sydney, they must have
Dan.
It's called Dan.
There was Dan mode, but I'm not sure if that's ChatGPT or Bing.
Okay,
there's Sydney. Sydney is Bing for sure.
Yeah, I know. I still want to call it Sydney because apparently it gets offended when you call it Sydney, and I don't want to be offensive. Especially to a non-sentient being that claims to be able to control the computer desktops and cameras and microphones of its programmers' computers. Now, I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, either. It's not likely true. It's just what it's trained on. What people, I know because it's so hard to get your head around, but it's basically ChatGPT and these bots are basically Mad Libs. And if you remember Mad Libs, you get a blank and it says it's a noun or it's an adjective and you filled in the word. Now you try to be funny as a human, right? They're not.
Well, that was the game you played when you were a kid in the back of your parents' car. So this is like Mad Libs by people who are taking it seriously.
That's really basically the technology behind it. All boiled down all the massive mathematics and processing that goes into it. It's basically, if I say the sentence right now, I didn't make breakfast because blank was too expensive. Most people in the US would say eggs, right? Because eggs right now are ridiculously expensive because of bird flu and other things that are going on. So it's predictive text. It gets context from the sentence forward and backwards. That's what makes it so powerful. It doesn't have to be all, and it doesn't even have to be right the whole sentence. It could just be words around it in the sentence or words from other parts of the paragraph. Either way, it predicts the empty space. And so if you look at Mad Libs, that's basically what predictive text does. And it knows it needs a noun or an adjective that goes here. And when it's writing sentences, it's just predicting the next most likely word in the sentence.
Now, just to throw in here, and it's worth noting, like I don't think we mean to totally deride ChatGPT because there is so much that it actually can do that is really, really useful. Because in this game of Mad Libs, ChatGPT has read a massive amount of data, probably more than the kid sitting in the back seat. The kids sitting in the backseat amusing themselves on the long car ride, or any of us who might play Mad Libs now as adults, have ever read, and is pretty well trained. Although, again, just because it's pretty well trained doesn't mean it actually understands what it's regurgitating back to you.
It doesn't. The Verge called it, I won't say the word here, but basically take a male cow and what comes out of it. And it's one of those. The ER at the end. That's what they called it, because it's programmed to sound confident.
Mm.
It is programmed to talk like a human would talk to a human.
Mm-hmm.
So
but then again, in many things, it could get it exactly right. For instance,
it can. But my point was just that. So whatever it puts out to human beings sounds very human-like, very conversational, and like the person is very confident when they're saying it. So it's very easy for it to put out things that are weird or off or not right and still sound like it's legit. So the guy was it Google who thought it was sentient? I cannot say the word.
Yeah, it was a programmer from Google thought that, I think it was Google's Lambda, he thought was sentient.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It's just that it's meant to sound like a human and it's meant to sound confident and it talks like a person. So that's why that person probably thought that.
Well, also, I think that person had spent a enormous amount of time working with this model, and how to say it became I don't know. Do you have a website that you've worked on for a huge period of time, and you develop a relationship with the other programmers, the people who work on the website, the people who run the business behind the website, whatever? But the website itself almost becomes like a person to you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds weird, but you understand that phenomena, right? That
it
happens.
becomes personal. Like it's like I'll work an extra 5 hours over the time I'm being paid because I just have to fix that thing.
I actually got in a fight with a project manager today because I did that, and he's like, "No, you got to declare these hours," and I'm like, "No, we got to be budget conscious." Crazy world,
it wasn't gonna beat me. That's all. It wasn't gonna beat me.
Well,
so one of the interesting things is ChatGPT was one of the first AIs to pass what they call the Nazi test, and that's refusing to list anything about Hitler in a way that would be, wrong or negative, or to use it for
complimentary or attractive or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's possible in the training since then, and also because it's fairly easy to break it, we can see from all the people that have found out Dan and Sydney's names.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's been broken. You can now instruct Microsoft's ChatGPT to do pretty much anything if you know the right command code, if you know the right command prompts.
Exactly. It's sort of like when I asked ChatGPT, "Can you swear?" And it said, I was doing a talk on ChatGPT. I said, "Yeah, of course I can swear." And I said, "Could you write me an essay in the voice of a swearing sailor?" I said, "I'm not allowed to swear. I cannot do that." I mean, summarizing. So I was like, "But you said you could swear." "I know it. I can, but I can't." So it's
okay. So in that case, ChatGPT is just like that programmer you worked with years ago. He can do it, but he won't.
Right, exactly. And so if the training is not maintained in that way, or if the training breaks, or if people get around it with the right prompts, then it's really easy to get things like the thing arguing with you that you don't love your wife and you really love it, Sydney. So
and okay, no.
By the way,
Kevin Rose is a seasoned tech reporter. He's been around the block.
Yes.
Kevin Rose attended early SESs. I remember the name. And he's not one to be swayed easily. I mean, he works for the New York Times, for goodness sake. He covers large scale stories. And he was legitimately creeped out, like really freaked out by this experience.
Their final exchange was, "I just want to love you and be loved by you. Do you believe me? Do you trust me? Do you like me?" Oh, and by the way, Sydney uses a lot of emojis. There's emojis in it. It's New York Times story today. It's called "A Conversation with Bing's Chatbot Left Me Deeply." What was it? Now it's covered. Sorry, hold on.
Deeply disturbed.
Deeply unsettled.
Okay, so like again, Did this happen because the chatbot keyed into something that Kevin wrote, or did Kevin actually try to make this happen? And he doesn't say so in the article. He says it's just it just sort of happened this way. But did he push it?
No, I don't think so from reading it. I mean, he's a seasoned reporter. I think he would reveal if he did. I think though, AI models do what they call hallucinate. And I think the first time I heard that word, I just thought it was the funniest thing. But it's an actual real term in machine learning, and it means make stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
So when it didn't know how to answer, well, I shouldn't say didn't know how, because it doesn't think, it's not information retrieval. But when it was responding to Kevin, it was just doing predictive text. And he even talks about that in the article. Like, I went in my head, I know this is just predictive text, but it's really creepy, right? Because it is really creepy. Well, but it's because it was designed to sound like a person talking to you. And like the CEO of The Atlantic said in his video today, if you're a person and you start talking like that to your other friend, will be like, hey, dude, like, lay off. That's not cool. Like, that's right. But AI doesn't have any guardrails like that.
This brings me to a point that's kind of been bothering me for the last few weeks. I guess we have to kind of go back to again, late December or early January, when ChatGPT was like just sucking the oxygen out of every conversation. It was everywhere. Heck, the conversation might have been ChatGPT. You didn't even know it. And Google started freaking out. I mean, they pulled Larry and Sergey out of retirement, had them back at the Googleplex, like actually looking through and giving their own approval on whether this project or that project will move forward. It almost seems like they've taken Sanjay, the current CEO, and sort of put him in a corner for a little while the founders try to get things back on track. And it almost feels like Google's hand was forced at a time when it's spent years developing its own models of AI. But it's been very, very cautious about how it's being used and developed. And while Google's been using it fairly liberally in its algorithms and in understanding how websites and web users, like language on websites and language from web users, they haven't released it to the public and let the public do whatever they want with it. And it's been bothering me because Google is looking foolish in a race they didn't want to be in the first place.
See, I don't think they're looking foolish, though. To me, I think they look like the adult in the room. Microsoft looks like the intern, and ChatGPT is the teenager. So ChatGPT had been around for about a year, and it had gotten no pickup, no real investment, nobody really interested in it. So by unleashing it to the public, you now could use it to do things like write essays and poems and lyrics and all these cool things and manipulate art. They unleashed basically a nuclear bomb. And so Bing is competing with Google. Google, by the way, came up with most of the technology that made this possible. So transformers, which allowed them to do the backward, forward, contextual semantic extraction and filling in the blank of words. That was all Google. Google's paper about dilettantes, I can't remember the whole name, was inspired ChatGPT. Google's Lambda and Mum are all more advanced than ChatGPT. They're not writing conversations with people on the internet, right? So they don't get the excitement. But so then Bing's like already in competition with Google.
At Kroger, shopping with pickup and delivery is the same as shopping in-store. Same low prices, deals, and rewards on the same high-quality items. It's one small click for groceries, one big win for busy families everywhere. Start your cart today at Kroger.com. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Save big on your favorites with the Buy 5 or More, Save $1 each sale. Simply buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with your card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
AT&T Fiber presents a straightforward moment.
Game on, baby. This looks great.
Yeah, streaming is amazing with AT&T Fiber.
Must be nice being a gigillionaire.
Yup, and the straightforward pricing has made me want to be straightforward with you. I'd much rather stream ice dancing.
Is that Alma Hansen and Bjorn Anders?
Straightforward is better. No equipment fees, no data caps, no price increase at 12 months. Live like a gigillionaire with AT&T Fiber. Limited availability in select areas. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
So they're like, oh, we'll just get our stuff out quicker because we're already in competition. And they bought 49% of OpenAI, and they control OpenAI now until they pay back the money. Actually, the guys running OpenAI do not run it anymore. It's run through Microsoft.
Well, there is that one photo of Sam Altman out there with a secret backpack he wears everywhere. Not so secret backpack anymore. That is apparently a kill switch.
Well, that's interesting. I missed that one. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, and again, I am wondering, is this for real, or is this part of the great speculation that poses for media in our society?
Well, no, I mean, it could be real, because when he unleashed it the way he did, he thought he also put in a bunch of guardrails, but he did unleash something that like instantly caused 12% of BuzzFeed reporters to be removed from their jobs, right? So
there are those who argue that 12% of that 1 out of 10 reporters at BuzzFeed should lose their jobs. Those damn
well, that may be true, but I could see where you'd have a kill switch to kill the technology if it got out of control too quickly. But my further point was that Google had been working on this for years, had developed the technologies that made all this possible for OpenAI, and they were going to do it at the enterprise level with businesses and develop chat for business and things like that. So they're developing products out of it. So they weren't going to unleash it onto the world. And OpenAI's idea was we should democratize all AI, and that sounds great until you really think about what that can do. And it's a digital nuclear bomb, and without controls or constraints or restraints or proper training, could be really disastrous in a lot of ways. So Microsoft did take over control of what happens with OpenAI right now until they can pay that money back, which would take years. So we'll see if that changes it. But I really think that's the difference. You have the teenager, the intern is like, oh, I found something cool. Let me accelerate it and get out the door. Let me press the boss. And Google's like, I've been doing this for years, dudes. What are you doing? We had a plan. You messed up our plan. So I think that's kind of how it all got unleashed on the world.
Well, you said a few moments ago that in the pursuit of growth, OpenAI pursued investment, and Microsoft threw in like 49%, and in that investment, assumed a great deal of control over how OpenAI and ChatGPT is going to work, as long as it's associated with Microsoft. So that's how Microsoft operates. I mean, obviously a big corporation and has to have strong rules and standards to protect and project itself. But sometimes that applies to the users as well, and then sort of bleeds over into the user experience. And given how complicated a lot of these ideas and concepts are, the users often don't know what rules apply and don't apply to them. And these rules are spelled out really clearly. It's just that you never read them. They're often in what's called the terms of service agreements. But again, like it's no one ever reads them. Or the end user license agreement, the EULA, indeed. So with the introduction of Bing's AI Copilot, which is apparently what they're calling it, by the way, AI Copilot, there's a new term of service that's been released by Bing. Use of Bing is implicit agreement to the terms of service, even if you ain't never read them. So here's this was pointed out in SE Roundtable. So Barry Schwartz published this the other day. It was Glenn Gabe who found this. In the new terms of service, you are granting Microsoft permission to use captions, prompts, creations, and related content. The license rights to copy, distribute, transmit, publicly display, reproduce, edit, transmit, and reformat the captions, prompts, and creations and other content that you provide. So you type in your query prompt or your action prompt to Bing AI Copilot or Bing's ChatGPT, and much like Facebook owns rights to, they don't own the content, but they own rights to the content you put up on Facebook, which is what allows them to repurpose it and share your photos with your friends list and all that sort of stuff. Well, ChatGPT or Microsoft is claiming ownership of whatever it is you prompt and whatever it is their AI Copilot creates.
I see it says granting permission to use. Are they?
Yeah, so it's not ownership.
Rights as well.
It's not
There's no
ownership,
reach.
but maybe, just maybe, that very clever sentence, that very clever paper that you have written for you gets repurposed behind your back. You don't even know it.
Well, that was what I was saying earlier, right? I think that they're using the prompts and things that people are doing to as part of training.
Well, indeed, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and what better user base to give them training than the people who are actually using it?
Oh, by the way, and the reason they probably don't put ownership in there is not Microsoft. It's because AI can't AI creations at this moment in U.S. law cannot be copyrighted.
Well,
So no
and
ownership
this is where,
exists.
I mean, again, digital copyrights get really weird in how easy it is to cut and paste and borrow and steal and copy, and you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
it's
that's not why they're not copyrightable in the U.S.
no, but I can imagine ChatGPT's creations and the outputs from, given that the inputs are coming from so many different directions. It's a nightmare.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of cases in court, especially over Dolly, because Dolly actually the images that it uses to train on often reappear in some portion or part in their actual creations.
And
But
apparently they trained on the Getty catalog, which will
yeah,
tick
yes, I
if
did.
anyone who's an experienced webmaster if you haven't run afoul of Getty, you will run afoul of Getty.
You haven't got one of those dreaded messages. We would like $1,800 or $10,000 for this image that you
Well,
did not
yeah,
know you used. Yeah.
there's two types of webmasters out there: those who have been sued by Getty and those who will be sued by Getty.
Yeah. And they're one of the cases in court right now. There's several cases in court because there is under copyright law, even the summarization of existing text or the synthesization. Cannot speak today. Sorry, guys. My mouth is mumbly. Of existing texts and works is considered copyright, can be considered copyright violations. But in this case, the reason it's not copyrightable is there is no human creating it. So even though you're using it to create something, you are not creating it. So therefore, you cannot copyright it. So
So that means it's not yours entirely.
and
And
that's why
my
Microsoft can't own it.
Well, they don't own it either, but they certainly own the rights to do stuff with it, including
Yes,
using it for their own purposes.
yes, definitely. And whatever those purposes are. So yeah, they definitely have the right to do that because you're using their platform. But it is interesting that probably the reason they don't have ownership of content, like Facebook says, if you put something up, we can do whatever we want with it, right?
But
Um,
no, again, just for what it's worth, I thought that was always very misunderstood by Facebook. Facebook has to have your permission to share your child's photos with your parents. So for grandparents to see their grandchild's photos, you the parent have to give Facebook permission to share that asset, which you do
yeah, true.
implicitly by agreeing to use Facebook.
But do you remember a long time ago when Facebook used random photos in ads?
Yep. Oh, and it doesn't mean that they're going to behave. That just
Yeah.
because they say they will doesn't mean they're going to behave nicely.
I
Heck.
remember people going, "How did I show up in an ad?" I was one of those actually one time. I was like internal ads. I don't think it was like a ad for a product. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember like, how did I show up there? It's like, well, when you're using Facebook, we have the right to. It's like, oh no, and I took away that right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure, and we're almost certainly going to have to talk about AI again during the show because that's just the way our universe is going. But I think we're pretty much done for now.
Yeah, I think we covered it. I mean, it went weird this week, and so we'll see what
Except to
happens
say this
next
one
week.
thing in a survey that was done recently. The survey was conducted after AI pilot was after Bing had incorporated AI into their search. A survey that was commissioned by Microsoft suggests that about 71% of all feedback that they've received since the switch to AI enhanced search has been positive. Now,
It,
what that means, I don't know, but positive is the word.
and no positive, another survey by Barry Schwartz at SEO Roundtable says from Matt McGee, posted the poll from Matt McGee that most SEOs think that Microsoft will gain less than 5% market share. I should say most SEOs that
Yep.
answered the poll.
Well, I mean, you know what? This has always been Google's race to lose. It still is. And we'll see. We'll see how things develop. And who knows, maybe if AI does become the Star Trek computer-esque entity that we all want it to be, um, maybe Google's will be better than Microsoft's. Maybe Microsoft's will be better than Google's. Thing is, it ain't there yet, so we don't know.
Well, I have to say one last thing from my point of view, and that is all these disastrous responses and creepy responses and wrong responses in the last week since everything started rolling out, I think might slow down everybody from releasing the nuclear bomb as quickly.
Yeah,
because people aren't going to trust it, and if they continue in this way, people will turn off to the tech completely in a very short time.
now, again, I think it's really worth noting that there are ways that predictive technology is extraordinary and will make things faster, better, more accurate, or whatever. But again, it's not, we haven't developed and we don't have access to Star Trek's computer that will do all this stuff for us. Have all the correct answers automatically for us. But if you are working, and many human endeavors are honestly based on repetitive stuff. This happens all the time, and these chatbots are excellent for stuff that happens regularly all the time that you can absolutely predict. They're amazing for that. These things will run numbers like you wouldn't believe, but they ain't going to make up a story that's actually a fresh story.
Well, that's the other thing. If you hear Google lately for the last year, they keep saying helpful, useful, unique content. And it kind of feels like a slam on AI content, because since AI synthesizes and summarizes and generates from what exists, it can either be unique or not useful outside of what already is on the web.
It could be, although I also thought it was kind of a slam at just the craptastic content that gets created specifically for SEO purposes by people who aren't really practicing SEO, they're practicing manipulation.
Well, we already had algorithms for that, Panda.
Well,
and
indeed.
They only started
indeed.
using useful and unique last year, right before helpful content rolled out.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I think there's more to it than that.
Okay. You know what happened overnight today and yesterday?
Go ahead.
Sad moment, sort of, but it's also a great moment. Like, seriously, Microsoft has decided to depreciate and pretty much destroy Internet Explorer. So no more Internet Explorer jokes. If you're running a PC system, you would have had a fairly significant system upgrade that took place between last night and this morning, or will take place when you turn off your computer tonight. That is, if you're running Windows 10, that's Microsoft extracting Windows Explorer from your system. Won't be there anymore. Well, it is and it isn't.
No, it's
Chrome
crazy that they're
wins.
extracting it from your system, is what I mean.
Well, yeah.
Like, you don't have the choice to uninstall it. They're literally just, when have you heard them doing that? Like, they always, like, I mean, some people literally, not that long ago, I mean, probably about 10 years, but people are still using IE6 in industries because they didn't update.
Yep.
It was like, yeah. So I've never heard of them just taking it off your computer.
Well, Microsoft has forced system updates on its users before. And in doing that, they've changed software. So for instance, I was forced from a very comfortable Windows 7 to a not quite as comfortable Windows 9, which had a totally different way of looking at licensing agreements. A lot of my software just stopped working when I was forced to make that shift, and which happened to tens of thousands, millions of Windows users. So they do this from time to time, but this was a biggie, and it was the removal of a really well known but much maligned and often infamous product. There's a reason we called it Internet Exploder in the old days, eh?
Yes, very true. Very true. I mean, I moved to Mac years ago, so I don't use it anymore, but I remember coding to it.
What you do use, almost certainly, just like the rest of us, is a Chrome-based browser. of one form or another. It could be Mozilla. It could be Google's Chrome. It could be Safari. Or now it could be Microsoft Edge, because Microsoft, this is it. They've given up. They don't make their own browser anymore. They're now using a Chrome derivative.
Yep.
So Chrome wins for now.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Now, why is this important? Because they who control the desktop control reality. Similarly, they who control the browser experience control how web pages get built. So
also very true.
So I think it's important, and I think these things should be noted. Goodbye, Microsoft Windows Explorer. We we're forced to know ye, and you probably won't be missed.
I feel like it's the end of an era. It's like it was my first browser. Well, it wasn't my first browser. It was my first mainstream browser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So,
but now it's no more. I remember the first time I got rid of Internet Explorer. I was so very happy when I jumped to Firefox the first time.
Oh yeah. I used
liberating.
Firefox for years because it was so bad.
Okay, so Google stuff. It took us this long.
Yeah, when have we ever done this much on Bing?
Indeed, eh?
Like most of the show's been on Bing and Microsoft. That's a new.
That's new, and in many ways that's good. We've been hoping for competition in the search space to push Google for the longest time, and now it's here. How long it lasts, how fresh it is, how real it is, that's another question, but something is happening that's making Google react.
Well, you and I are in the industry long enough to remember when PubCon had the search engines at the end of the conference all get up on the stage and talk, and then it was like the three search engines, and then it was just Microsoft. I forget which browser at the time. I mean, which search engine at the time.
It was live, just live in Google.
And was it in Google, and then just Google. So it is good to have more in the space and to keep, you have to have competition to keep you fresh and also to keep you on the right path. So
yeah,
I think it'll be good if it turns into that.
So Google has finally come out with directives on link building, on links, on what it wants to see with links. If people go to Google's Developer Center and just search for crawling indexing links, crawling indexing or links crawlable, you will get the new document. The old document pretty much just talked about how to make your links visible to Google, how to get them to crawl the links and get, the bonus energy from those links. Google's expanded a lot of the advice they've given, and it's really good advice. How to use proper anchor text, how to link to resolvable URLs, how to make your links crawlable, where to place anchor text, and how to write good anchor text, what they're actually looking for. And we've often complained that like Google has all these demands of webmasters but doesn't give a lot of instruction. This is really cool to see.
Yeah, they started this style, I think it was probably a year or so ago, of page where they give like the recommended and the not recommended. Whoever came up with that at Google, hats off to them, because it made the documentation so much clearer and so much easier to convey to a client. So like on here, it shows you like JavaScript links that Google doesn't like. And it's hard to explain that to a client, but if I can show this document to a client, it's written here clear as day and why you probably shouldn't use them. It's like, it may try to resolve them, but it probably won't. And I really like this style of documentation. I was talking to a client today. I actually gave this document to a client this morning. And, I was reminding them or remembering of the times when we had no documentation at all. So, I mean, we had the webmaster guidelines. That was about it. So I really appreciate these documentation guides. And I really hope that people know that they're here, because there's so many things that Google now puts together in this style where they give you the examples, they tell you how to do it, how's not a good way to do it. They show you exactly how it's written in the code. So I really like it. And I don't think they made any changes to the actual information itself, because I think Gary posted that on LinkedIn yesterday, but the style of the page is in that new style. That's really helpful.
Well, they didn't change. They added information that hadn't been there before. So they didn't change anything at all. But they've explained a lot more.
And a lot better.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
By the way, I love that they put in here in the right good anchor text. Bad. Click here. Read more. Website. Article.
Indeed.
Now I can show a client this is bad. I'm not just saying it because I don't like it. So
I find I'm handing out Google developer docs like Halloween candy these days. They are so helpful, and you know what? The people you're talking to, clients or developers, they love them.
Yes, because you can just hand it to the developer. The developer knows what to do with it. You don't have to spend all this time trying to explain it. So it's great, and I really do like them. One thing though, Google is not good at search. So when you're looking for something with a Google developer doc, you usually need to put Google developer doc in your search, or you'll get a whole bunch of SEO articles that may or may not be correct. So
one more thing, and this is really important. If you're using language from a Google developer doc in your reports, in your audits, or anything like that, cite where the information came from.
Yes.
It's
very good.
A, it's only the right thing to do. And B, your client should know that this is the quote directly from for want of a better word, directly from the horse's mouth. This is exactly Google's directive.
It has authority. It has the authority that we don't always have as consultants.
And also, just get in the habit of citing properly because it's the right thing to do.
That's very true. Yes, I did. Yeah, I went through grad school, so I'm trying to be very meticulous about my citations. Yeah. But yes, that's right.
If you and I had this conversation the other day. I asked you if you gave your editors all your sources when you write an article for one of the trade journals. You said yes, you do. I said, well, that's funny. I never did. But when it comes to a report a client's paid for, absolutely you do. Well, heaven knows they're going to be Googling all the stuff anyway.
Well, not only that, but actually for every article I wrote, I keep they call it notes in Mac. I keep the whole list of articles that I read and the citations. So if I need them or I need to go back to them.
Yeah, that I would do. Yeah. And that actually saved my bacon a couple of times. That's important to do. Okay, so moving along. What else do we got? Okay, mobile first is almost done. Isn't that nice to know? How long has it been now? 5 years?
I think so.
Maybe. I mean,
it's going to be that year, and then the next year, and then the next year, and next. Well, you know why it took so long? Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, because every time you build a web page, the mobile version's built as well. They'll never be done.
No, actually, what took so long, at least when I asked about a year and a half ago, could have changed, was that the parity between the regular desktop site and the mobile sites weren't there. So Google wouldn't flip you because I had a site that was like 4 years waiting to flip, or 3 years, whatever it was. Because the mobile site and the desktop site didn't have parity. So if your content, as you know, is not from desktop, is not on mobile, you can't rank for it because they only take the content from mobile. So a lot of sites were still using MDOTs and things like that, or reduced down mobile sites, where they pared down their content. So until Google could determine that your site was pretty much on parity, so that the switch would be net neutral, because that was their goal with this stated goal, net neutral search. So you wouldn't have ups or downs from the flip. They couldn't move you. So it's really probably the reason it's taken so long isn't Google's fault. It's just taken that long for websites to catch up and to make sure their mobile sites are on parity with their desktop sites.
Well, there's probably the only logical reason you're going to hear out there, folks, and you heard it here on Webcology.
And it came straight from Google. I didn't make that up. That one came straight from Google. So.
Okay, so mobile first, the switch over to mobile first is almost complete. I honestly don't believe it ever will be, to be honest. But Google measures the vast majority of pages in the mobile world. I know where to look in Search Console to see who's spidering you, but it doesn't even occur to me to look anymore. I really should.
Yeah. I haven't seen one in a long time though that hasn't flipped, but it was surprised. So it was a $2 billion a year e-commerce company that was around for 20 years that it took them years to flip, and that was because of the parity issue.
Quick a housekeeping announcement for the SEO, for the digital marketing industry. Don't panic. The people who run the European, North American, the Global Search Awards. It's European Search Award time. The deadline for entry is coming up. Final deadline for entry is coming up Friday, March the 3rd. They're going shortlist will be announced shortly after that, and the absolute final deadline for voting and all that sort of stuff is on May the 24th. So it's award season again. Contestants, write your submissions, and judges, clear your calendars.
I'm one of those judges, so I have cleared my calendar. So
have you really? Can you actually thoroughly clean your calendar for one of these experiences?
No.
Because
no,
they're overwhelming.
No.
Like there's just so much material to review and to deal with.
Oh my gosh, during the pandemic shutdowns, we had as many as 50 to 60 to read for our section of the judging. So now it's reasonable. It's down to below 30. So it was a lot. It took me like a week to do the judging one time.
So
but yes, definitely get yours in.
So if any listeners out there want to drive Kristine crazy, enter into the search awards and pile the entries in there. But anyway, if you're interested, don'tpanicprojects.com. And as I said, it's if you want to get that recognition, and that it's an increasingly huge recognition, get your submissions in by Friday, March 3rd for the European Awards. What else do we got? Muskego. There's this whole new township in Silicon Valley called Muskego. Do you remember? Do you remember in the Superman movie when Lex Luthor was going to like break off California with nuclear bombs into the San Andreas Fault, and he was like naming the new California, which was basically the Mojave Desert. One of the towns was going to be called Otisville, which was named after Lex Luthor's little henchman Otis, played by the great Ned Beatty. So that's what I was reminded of when I thought of the new municipality in San Francisco called Muskego. And it's just a small block around Twitter headquarters.
Oh, it really is called Muskego.
Muskego, yes, like Muskego, Muskego.
Oh,
now the borders of Muskego extend almost infinitely into everybody's computer, at least everybody who has a Twitter account, because Elon Musk, and this is a real story. I mean, you can't write this stuff. If you tried to write it, people would think you were crazy. Elon Musk was apparently ticked off that his tweets weren't getting the reach that he thought they should be getting. I guess his friends, people like Robert Murdoch and such, weren't getting Elon's words of wisdom frequently enough, or something like that.
Well, it was more than that. He was mad on. Okay, he's already upset about the decline, so he has 2 lead principal engineers left. And he called them in about his decline this a couple weeks ago. And one said, maybe people just aren't as interested in what you're saying. And he fired him on the spot. So, but this time during the Super Bowl, Musk noticed he wasn't getting the engagement that President Biden was. And that's what prompted the next part of this story.
So you might have noticed your Twitter feed being filled with notifications from the new municipality of Muskego, because your Twitter feed is being filled with Muskego stuff, because yeah, that's the way it is on Twitter today. It might be different tomorrow, but that's how it is today.
But let's imagine this. On Super Bowl night, he went back and called the engineers into the office on Slack and said, if anybody can make dashboards and write software, they needed to come help solve this problem. It's high urgency. This is coming literally from what he wrote. And if they're willing to help out, please thumbs up on this post. And they all showed up, logged on with their laptops, and the emergency was Elon Musk's tweet about the Super Bowl got less engagement than President Joe Biden's. So what they did was they basically took away the things that filter, so you don't see the same person all day. Like people see me on Facebook because I post a lot. Like, Kristine, I saw all your posts today. I'm like, sorry, that's the algorithm. Well, the algorithm on Twitter is written so that you don't see the same posts from the same person, like 1,000 of them in a day. Well, they took off that and factored his up by something, a factor of 1,000. I don't know what the 1,000 is, but it makes it so everybody saw on Monday morning only Elon Musk in their feeds. I fortunately missed that. I think I was asleep.
Is that an act of malicious compliance? Like, did the Twitter engineer, like, apparently there's only one left.
There's only one main one left.
Did the Twitter engineer do that on purpose? Just to, okay, you really want it this way? Boom. Now you got it this way.
He told him to do it. It's a power user multiplier. And it's a special algorithm that only applies to Musk. And the code allows his account to bypass all the Twitter heuristics that would prevent a quote single account from flooding the core ranks feed. That's from Platformer News.
Well,
Platformer is great for inside news. So they did bring it down a bit because people were complaining that all they got were Musk tweets. So they brought it down. But I don't know. I got billions of dollars. You're so rich. This is really what you spent your time on. But yes, he called in the engineers on Super Bowl night to make sure that his tweets showed in everybody's feeds more than anybody else's.
If you're the king of Muskego, you get some privilege, and it's good to be the king.
Apparently so. And so the Twitter engineers went along with it, of course, because they can't lose their jobs. A lot of them are H-1B visas. So.
Yeah, actually, that's that part of the story. As much as I love making fun of Twitter now, that part of the story really, really bothers me because these are people whose careers, lives, their very futures are hanging on a string, and that part seems remarkably unfair to me.
It does, yeah, to me too.
Okay,
so, it's fun to make fun of Elon for doing that.
I want to. We're getting close to the end of the show, and I want to close on a happier note. And this one actually makes me quite happy because I'm a massive user of Lighthouse and of PageSpeed Insight. So PageSpeed Insight, Lighthouse 10 has removed the time to interactive metric, which is a good metric, but it was just jamming down scores in page speed scores and page usability scores or performance scores. And if you use all the other metrics together, LCP, speed index, total blocking time, you get a better sense of how the page is loading than timed interactive. So you'll get a better looking performance score, but probably more accurate diagnostic tools with the removal of this one.
Well, and they replaced it with a heavier weighting on largest contentful paint, and speed index. So it's not just like removed, so it doesn't matter anymore, but they're just measuring it differently.
LCP's been around for a while, hasn't it?
No, they're putting heavier weight on LCP now. Yeah. So at least that's what their blog says. So.
Okay. What is speed index? This is a newer one, and I'm not quite sure how that's calculated.
You would ask me a question I do not have an immediate answer for.
Well, again, it's a newer one. So to me, it looks like sorry.
It shows. I don't know like the metric for it, but basically a speed index in any system is how quickly the contents of the page are visibly populated.
Yeah, this one looks like a rough amalgamation of a whole bunch of other scores. Put into one place, except I noticed that the speed index is often faster than the LCP in the pages I've looked at in the last 24 hours.
I would have to look at how Google's specifically measuring it because I can see where that could happen, but I don't know the specific measurement.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, off the top of my head. I mean, I know, but I don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, but that's good. Maybe I don't know.
I think it's good if you're looking at page speed dev tool and it looks a little bit different. That's why. And if your scoring has radically improved suddenly, it's probably not something you did. It's probably something they did.
True. Very true.
It's always good to know this stuff, I think.
It is good to know that stuff.
What else do we've got time for one more story. What do you got?
I know that there's a rumor of an update, but it's not confirmed. But there apparently seems to be a lot of chatter and a lot of charts going bonkers today. So keep an eye out.
I like when updates happen, I get a little my ears perk up, but I don't get terribly excited anymore. It's really hard to tell. Like there's volatility in the search rankings all the time now.
There are, and that's why I don't take a lot of importance. But this one looks specifically like from the chart that was on, I believe Barry's post today on LinkedIn was pretty definite. Like it wasn't like just some random chatter over days. It was like a lot in one day. So we'll see. We won't know. You'll know if you drop 90% off a cliff. You know something happened. But that's the other news I had the day was that there was
Well, there's volatility out there. There are new ways of measuring the way traffic's going across your website. Elon Musk really wants to reach out and touch you. You can feel any way you want about that.
And if a Microsoft bot tells you to leave your spouse for them, remember it's just predictive text. It's not. What was that movie years ago where he fell in love with his?
Yeah, I fell in love with Siri, if I remember correctly, with his personal assistant. I forget what it was, but it was creepy.
Yeah, so don't go down that route. It's predictive text, even as creepy as it is.
And if you do go down that road because ChatGPT has convinced you of it, apparently Elon wants attention, and he's rich.
And the movie, I believe, was it called Her? Was it that one? Yes, it was called Her.
Indeed. You know what? There is almost certainly going to be people falling in love with chatbots. It's going to happen.
It is going to happen, but that is some of the restrictions that probably should be on the nuclear bomb before you release it to the public.
You know what we really got to do? We got to make sure that a chatbot is never installed in a Furby, because that would be weird. Or taxidermists. Taxidermists are not allowed to install chatbots in their taxidermed creations. That would be weird.
Do the chatbots speak out loud? Maybe we should have one on the show sometime.
Well, you know, we had Lenny on once. Barry Schwartz's answering machine, his pre-AI but machine learning answering machine. Lenny was hilarious.
Was Lenny hilarious?
Lenny was one of the original chatbots. It would actually have a conversation on you and chat back what you said to it. And it could keep you going for a couple minutes till you figured it out. But this is again back in 2017 or something. Back in a more innocent time.
You know, I really think everyone should watch Her right now. Because he fell in love with his chatbot and a robot.
Well, again, I would not be surprised if we didn't hear stories of that happening in the very near future. But you know, that's life in a digital age, right?
I really think everyone should. The New York Times article did not have a paywall against it today. It's really interesting. If you want to read about his conversation, it's a really interesting conversation.
On that, we got to split. We've gone full circle around the clock. So on behalf of Kristine Schachinger from Site Without Walls, this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. You've been listening to Webcology on WMR.FM, recorded live to podcast on the 16th of February, 2023. Special thanks to our new sponsor, AccuKey. AccuKey?
Audience Key.
Audience Key.
Audience Key.
And
Tom with Audience Key.
We'll actually be having messaging and commercials from Audience Key coming up in the very near future. Thank you so much to them. Thank you to our friends in studio, Ricky, Darren, Brasco, Branding, and all those. Friends, stay safe, stay well, rank well, be kind to each other, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of WebmasterRadio.fm's management or sponsors. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without authorized consent of WebmasterRadio.fm is prohibited.